After 2 years of not being there, I finally returned to PhillyCon. So stay tuned to find out what I got. Hey YouTube, it's Mandak coming at you with another haul video. So welcome into haul video number 179, guys. This haul will be my PhillyCon 2026 haul. So as I alluded to in my last video, I was fortunate enough to go down to Philly with my wife and my friends to go to PhillyCon. It was the weekend after Memorial Day, so definitely had a lot of fun. That was the first time I've been in Philly in a while, actually. It's been really good. It was really fun. I'll probably post some pictures here of our trip. It was actually a really fun weekend overall. On Thursday, we celebrated a birthday party for one of my friends at a bar, which was really cool. And then Friday, some of my friends were coming into town for the con, so we met up with them for dinner and had some ice cream and just hung out for a couple hours in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So that was fun. And then obviously we had Saturday, which was the con, so that was really cool. It's really funny, like all of us kind of drove in separately. Some of us kind of carpool with others. We got there probably around the time that the con was actually starting. So we we actually hit a pretty long line. It actually took us, I feel like it took us longer to actually get in line than it took for us to actually get into the con from when we actually got in the line. It actually wrapped around the entire convention center pretty much, but we got in probably like in like a half hour of when the con opened, so it wasn't too bad. I guess I'll just give my overall thoughts of the con here before I get into like my comics section and everything. But I thought the con was pretty good. It was pretty much the same as kind of what I remember from 2 years ago when I went there with all my friends. It was fun. I definitely did not spend as much as have had in the past, which is not always a bad thing, I guess. I will show some pictures here. My wife and I took a picture with like the 501st Legion, which is like this big like Star Wars cosplay Legion. They had like this massive like area at the con where you can actually just walk up and take pictures for free. So that's what we did. So that was really fun. Got to shop around a little bit. My wife and I both kind of got to go out and like shop a little bit. Went to Reading Terminal Market as always for lunch. So got myself my roast pork sandwich from Denick's as usual. That always slaps. So that's like half the reason why I like going to the cons is the food, honestly. So that was really cool. Like we all kind of, it's funny, for as chaotic as the Reading Terminal Market is, we actually were all able to kind of get our food around the same time and walk over and like sit near the convention center near some tables and stuff and like eat together. So that was actually really cool. That worked out that way. After lunch, kind of just shopped around a little bit more. My wife went with a couple of my friends to go to a Once Upon a Time panel. So she went and did that while I shopped around a little bit more. And then we both met up for a Lord of the Rings panel with two of the Hobbit actors, and then John Rhys Davis, one of the dwarfs, I think, is the character he played. But he also played Sala in the Indiana Jones movies. So there's that. So that was really fun. And then usually, I would say probably around that time is kind of when we were all kind of wrapping up from the con. It was around like 5:36. So at that point, we had reservations for dinner a couple blocks away. So we walked over there, had dinner. And then after that, we went to like this like mini golf place. and played a game of mini golf, and then yeah, pretty much just drove home after that. So um, yeah, like I said, overall it was really fun. You know, it's always great to see my friends. I feel like I don't really get a chance to meet or see them a lot as much as I used to. And that's just because all of us have gotten busier as we get older, right? So it's always great that when we can all hang out together and have a really fun time. I think total it was like 14 of us that went to the con. So it was a lot of people that we were able to kind of hang out with and do stuff with. So that was really cool. So yeah, I have some stuff that isn't necessarily comic that I'll kind of show here on this portion before I get into the comic section. So one thing my friends, my one friend Mike did for me a couple months ago at this point actually was he was able to pick up some Phillies hats that I've been kind of on the lookout for. Never actually found anywhere near me. And sure enough, he found them at a Marshall's for like a really good price. So I wanted to give him a shout out for getting these for me for a decent price. So the first one I'll show here is a kind of a gray and burgundy. These are snapbacks. I think you can probably bend the cap a little bit, but I don't really care too much. I'm not really going, you know, as long as it fits my head, that's all I care about. But yeah, I picked this one up. This is like a variant of like the retro Phillies hat. I have one of those that I actually wear a lot recently. Maybe I need to rotate out, wear a different hat now. But this one's really cool. So got this one. My friend Mike again was able to get this one for me. So really nice hat, honestly. Might want to wear this out sometime, or you know, I'm still thinking about which hat I want to bring down to my vacation and all that stuff. So maybe this one will make the cut. So really cool to get that one. All right. And then the next hat I got here was probably the one I was looking forward to getting more. It's just been so hard to find this hat for like a decent price because like all the places I see online are like charging like $35 for this hat, which is really ridiculous to be honest. But that is the Phillies City Connect hat, which they wear on their home games on Fridays. So very limited amount of times I feel like they wear these. Probably about, I would say 8 or 9 times in the year maybe. But yeah, really cool. Like it, the little ombre kind of like gradient there on the front of the hat. The Liberty Bell obviously, and then you see the city in the background of the Liberty Bell. So yeah, I really like these City Connect hats. I don't have a jersey yet. I don't really care too much about that. I actually like recently bought like a nameless like retro Phillies jersey at TJ Maxx last year for like $50. So like that's kind of what I'm planning on wearing to Phillies games going forward. So but yeah, really cool to get this, and really good to have this in my collection, which is ever expanding. I have a lot of Phillies hats now. Let's see, I mean, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These will be the 9th and 10th hats. Well, actually, I have the World Series hats too, so add those onto that. So yeah, a lot of hats for Phillies. So and I think I wore the retro hat around the con on Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the comic section here as we normally do, and I'll show you all what I got at the con. So stay tuned. All right, guys, thanks for tuning into the comic section here. So as I normally do, I will go through what I've been reading. So this is another large chunk. Again, I apologize just because I don't do as many haul videos anymore. These what I've been reading chunks are going to be a little big, so bear with me. I will try my best to get through them quickly here. So yeah, so what I've been reading, pretty much very much a continuation of the stuff I've already been reading, which is mostly just Avengers, Star Wars, and Supergirl. So those are the 3 kind of like buckets I've been reading from, just kind of in anticipation for these movies coming out, or have already come out this year. So I'll start alphabetically. these aren't necessarily in the order of like how I read them. I kind of all read them like continuously with each other. But anyways, the first chunk of Avengers stuff. So I think last haul, I talked about how I finished at Avengers Disassembled. So that was kind of the end of like the volume one like numbering, if you will, of Avengers. So everything I've been reading now is all like Bendis New Avengers stuff. So that's kind of the chunk that I've decided to talk about here on this haul. So yeah, so starting with New Avengers Breakout, or Volume 1 Breakout. This I actually read with my friends at Penn State when we were when we were in the Marvel Club. We actually read, I think, all of the issues in this series, but that was like almost a decade ago, which is actually kind of insane to think about that it's been that long since I've read that with them. So I decided obviously to just go back and reread it, and this is great. I love the premise of how this series starts, how the team gets back together after the events of Avengers Disassembled. Obviously, Cap and Iron Man form the team of like Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Luke Cage, and then eventually Wolverine and Sentry. I believe that's everybody. I don't think I'm missing anybody yet. I think that's the initial team that kind of forms. But yeah, so like, you know, this book is mostly just like gathering the whole team together. We get the storyline like in this where they go to the Savage Land, you know, and they're all kind of stripped down naked. I always thought that was a little weird how like they get captured and they're all just like completely naked in front of each other. So that was a little weird. But no, overall I thought it was a really strong start to the series. You know, I really like Brian Michael Bendis' writing, so I think it works really well, and this is kind of like his peak in terms of like his writing at Marvel. The next volume here is Sentry. So obviously this one kind of goes without saying, but this volume is all about Sentry, and definitely had a newfound appreciation for this character and this story arc, if you will, after seeing Thunderbolts. So obviously, if you haven't seen Thunderbolts, the movie that came out last year, that movie is very much like Sentry. Bob Reynolds is basically the main character in that story. He's kind of the main, I guess, and semi-antagonist kind of person. But yeah, basically, after reading this, I'm like, yeah, okay, so it seems like they kind of took a lot of story beats and stuff from this book and put it into Thunderbolts, which, you know, it is what it is, right? That's kind of why we watch these movies, because they remind us of the books, right? But yeah, I think the biggest outcome from this, obviously, is that Sentry kind of becomes like more mentally like stable with the Void, which is like his other persona. And then also we get like kind of the origins of why the Avengers Tower becomes the way the way it looks is basically because Sentry creates like his fortress on top of the tower of Stark Tower. So that's kind of interesting there, I thought. Volume 3 of New Avengers, Secrets and Lies, kind of introduces us to Ronan for the first time, which, to actually my surprise, is not Hawkeye, it's not Clint, because I think at this point Clint is still dead from Avengers Disassembled. Turns out Ronan is actually Maya Lopez, Echo. I think I got her name right. So she's kind of on a mission there, you know, going to Japan to take down the Hand, I believe. And then you also have kind of this like this little thing that started in the first volume and has kind of trickled into subsequent volumes is Spider-Woman's like triple agent status, if you will. Like she's working for the New Avengers, but then she's also working for Hydra, who the reason why she's working for Hydra is because she's trying to report stuff to S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's like this whole thing, and I'm like, this is just a little too convoluted, but yeah, there's some stuff that comes out from like their visit to take down Madam Hydra that kind of prompts like questioning from Cap. So I think that's an interesting thing. You know, Spider-Woman really does have a lot of moments in this book, and I like it because I feel like she doesn't really get like, you know, her character was, kind of went through the ringer a little bit in the early days of her origins. I mean, I feel like, from what I remember, her character was basically just created just so like DC couldn't steal the copyright from Marvel for Spider-Woman. So, but I think her character definitely, like the height of her character is definitely in these books, because she's definitely at the forefront of a lot of the stories. So that was cool. And then this is kind of where I started looking into the mapping for this whole series, because obviously from here on out it gets more complicated with new Avengers stuff, and then you have Mighty Avengers, you have events sprinkled in, um you have Dark Avengers, you have the actual like just regular Avengers that gets launched at a certain point. So yeah, this is where I'm kind of like have to really pay attention to my mapping with what I read, because otherwise I'm gonna get lost, or I'm gonna read stuff out of order, and I definitely don't want that. So the next book that kind of came in that order was House of M. So funny story with this one. I could have swore I had this collected somewhere, and I looked everywhere for it. I could not find it in my collection. I'm like, am I just going crazy? Like, I just cannot find it. I looked in the X-Men section. I looked in the event section, or like alphabetically, right, to find it. Just could not find it. So I think what happened is I think I actually sold it back at some point, and I never marked it on my tracker that I did. So, so yeah, basically, long story short, I ended up reading it on Marvel Unlimited. And man, this was a page turner. This was really, I actually really liked House of M. I thought the whole premise of it was good. It obviously picks up from the events of Avengers Disassembled, because you know basically, as I mentioned in other videos, in that storyline, Scarlet Witch goes nuts and basically causes the end of the Avengers. So essentially, this story is about the X-Men teaming up with the Avengers to take Scarlet Witch down, because of her powers. And when they first try to go to, I think, Genosha to try to take her down, she basically creates this alternate reality, where like mutants have basically taken over the world. Like, they basically control like all the different parts of government. They run Shield, like all this stuff. And it's basically like Wolverine, who basically is like able to come to and realize that this is an alternate reality. And like basically they use this other kid, I forget what her name is, but they use like a kid to like help all the other heroes remember. And then that's how they take down like Pietro and Magneto, and because they create this whole separate like monarchy on Genosha called the House of M. And that's basically like where the name of the story comes from. And then obviously, the end of the story ends with, Scarlet Witch saying no more mutants. And that basically kind of resets a lot of the X-Men universe, which I haven't gotten to yet. So hopefully I'll be able to eventually see it from that angle at some point. But yeah, I mean, this kind of starts to lead into some of the stuff that happens in Civil War. It's very interesting the way it kind of ends with that, and like it definitely sets the stage for what comes later in Civil War, I feel like. So that's interesting to see that. But yeah, overall I thought it was a really good event. Like I said, I thought it moved. I really liked a lot of the character moments. I think it did a good job balancing both the X-Men and the New Avengers in this storyline. So I definitely like, some people say, oh, you can skip it, but I definitely think like if you're reading New Avengers, reading House of M is definitely an important thing to read, obviously, because it directly addresses the stuff that happened in Disassembled. So there's that. Next volume here, so New Avengers, Volume 4, The Collective. Some stuff happens in this book. The biggest storyline that happens here, I think the name of the character is Michael Pointer. But basically, like, it's like this like alien thing that crashes into Earth and basically causes this guy to go nuts. And obviously at this point, like, the American government's still having issues like recognizing the Avengers as like a team because of the events of Avengers Disassembled. So like, Shield basically is the one who has to step in and try to take this guy down, who has like Michael Korvac levels of like power. Um, and it's really funny because like also like this whole run makes me really hate Maria Hill, and I guess that's the intent because of what happens later here in the next volume I'll talk about. But yeah, like her character is very hateable in this storyline as a whole, and then like basically she has to cave and call in the new Avengers to help, and there's a lot of like distrust building between like Cap and Iron Man versus Shield, and obviously like this kind of leads into the Civil War era of Marvel Comics, right? But yeah, that this storyline is really interesting. I thought that was really cool and definitely read really nicely. So that's my thoughts on that. Um, Volume 5 of New Avengers was Civil War. So this one obviously kind of, it's not the actual Civil War storyline. That's actually in a separate trade that I've already read, and I didn't really feel a need to go reread that again. I already know kind of what happens, what the outcomes are. Like, I don't need to reread it again. But essentially, like, what I liked about this volume was that each issue had like a different focus on different new Avenger characters. So you had stuff with Cap, kind of like what he was doing around the events of Civil War, like underground movements. A really good story with Luke Cage, like basically with Iron Man coming to his house and saying like you need to register, otherwise they're gonna come for you. Um, Stories with Spider Woman, Sentry, and then the last one here ends with Iron Man, and basically it's him being offered the position as director of Shield. So, um, that kind of is like towards the end of the storyline of Civil War, and it leads into the like Tony Stark or Iron Man director of Shield era of Iron Man. So, which I read, God, I think at least 6 or 7 years ago, 6, 7. So there's that. But yeah, overall, I really like this stuff. I'm definitely excited to keep reading. I have this massive pile of books sitting next to me that is all in reading order with sticky notes of stuff I have to read on Marvel Unlimited. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really fun trip to go down this era, something that's been out there for probably close to 20 years now, but I just have never had a chance to sit down and read it in order. So I'm really excited to actually get to experience that. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Next chunk of books here I read was a bunch of Supergirl stuff, and at this point I have basically finished my whole collection of Supergirl stuff, which is perfect timing because the movie comes out in a couple weeks at the time of this recording. So I am as prepared as I'll ever be for Supergirl. So I'll quickly go through the Supergirl Rebirth stuff, starting with Volume 2. This one basically has a team up with Batgirl, where they go to the Phantom Zone and they realize that there are people being kept there, and so they basically work together to free some of the people that are trapped in the Phantom Zone. Volume 3 of Supergirl has a lot of stuff going on with the Emerald Empress, which I feel like is just DC's version of the Enchantress. So I thought that was kind of funny that like, I don't know, I know they're not the same characters necessarily, but like both of them look very, very similar in my eyes. So, so yeah, there's some stuff that goes on there, a lot of fighting and stuff, which kind of leads into the last volume here, where essentially it's a lot, this last one is a lot more grounded, if you will, where she's at school and basically this like government agency, the DEO, is trying to find Supergirl. So they basically try to find her. There's like a whole dance, like school dance, where she goes with one of her friends. So, and that's kind of where the series ends. I don't know. I felt like it ended kind of abruptly, to be honest. Overall thoughts on it? Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't amazing. It was just all right. I think the stuff that I'm going to talk about here later on is actually better, in my opinion, than the Rebirth Supergirl stuff. Obviously, I kind of knew going into this that this wasn't the best material, but nonetheless, I kind of wanted to just read it, just to see what I thought of it. Most likely, we'll probably be selling those 4 volumes back to Second and Charles or to anyone who's watching this, if you're interested, hit me up, I guess. But anyways, there's that. All right, next book I got here, I read, was Supergirl Being Super. So I think I bought this book about a year ago while I was up in New York, babysitting our niece and nephew. So this is like a little graphic novel. Like it's like the digest size books. It's not the compact series that DC has been releasing, but it's like a different version. But this one I thought was really good. This is written by Mariko Tamaki, so I already was somewhat or very much invested in this book just because of her. I really like her writing. Obviously with Spinning and this last summer or something like that, or last summer, I forget what that book was called, but yeah, that was really what pulled me to actually buy this book and read it. And again, this one was very grounded, very much grounded in like her life in school. She has two friends in this book, Dolly and Jen, who she does track with. So I think that was cool. And like the premise of this book is like basically like one of her coaches turns out to be like the scientist who's trying to find Kryptonians on Earth. And she actually causes an earthquake with some of her technology, which causes one of her friends to, I don't think she dies. I think she falls in and she's captured or something. So, but no, I thought the book was really good. I really enjoyed reading it. It was a very quick read. I think I read it in like less than a day. But really great art too on the inside. I can't remember who draws this book. But the coloring was also really nice. Really reflected the mood of the book, in my opinion. So yeah, really, really good find. If you can find it, whether either in like regular size trade paperback or this little digest size that I found, I definitely think it's worth a read, in my opinion. And then the last book here I read was Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So again, I think I talked about this on this channel, but I got that book from one of my friends from college. She sent me it because it was a duplicate that she had from an order she placed. So yeah, this is written by Tom King, 8-issue miniseries, or 8-issue, I guess, limited series, whatever you want to call it. And basically it's like Supergirl accompanying this warrior, like younger warrior woman named Ruth on her mission to basically find the killer of her father, who turns out to be Krem of the Yellow Hills. So yeah, this story is good. I really liked it. It's obviously, I guess the thing that was interesting about this story is that it's told through the eyes of Ruth. So like a lot of like Supergirl is almost like an afterthought in this book, and like it's not in a way that it actually takes away from the book. It's more of like a new perspective that I thought was pretty refreshing. The last two issues of this book I thought were probably the best. It gets to a head where like Ruth is able to capture Krem and she's about to kill him when like Supergirl steps in to stop her. So yeah, I this was a very good book. If you haven't read already, I would definitely recommend reading this. I mean, as someone like myself who didn't have a lot of background on Supergirl, I still found a lot of enjoyment out of this book. So if that tells you anything, I think it's a good read and something worth checking out in anticipation for this movie that's coming out. So yeah, it was definitely a different take on her compared to the prior two books I had read. This was completely out in space, like other worlds, like her exploring. It was completely different from all the other stuff I had previously read where she's on Earth. So I think that's what made it definitely stand out. So there's that. All right. We're getting towards the end, I promise. The last chunk of books here I have is Star Wars. So I do want to start this off by saying I was actually able to read and finish an actual Star Wars book called Master and Apprentice. So I think I showed this on my haul a couple of hauls ago. But this is a This is a story that takes place before the events of episode 1. It's a lot of stuff between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, where they go on this planet called Pygel to basically uh, oversee this treaty that's going to basically allow this like corporation to take over this planet and like instill slavery. So yeah, I don't want to spoil too much about what happens in the book, but it definitely is I thought it was a really good book. I thought Claudia Gray wrote it, so it was a really good book. And it definitely helps. I feel like there's hints of like stuff that happens in episode 1 in this book, which obviously I feel like is intentional. Um, but yeah, I thought it was really great. Definitely worth a read if you're looking for something that's around that era. Um, and it's actually this is a canon book. This is not Legends, so it's actually canon with the rest of the stuff that's come out. So yeah, would recommend reading that. All right, so next couple books here I read were a bunch of stuff with Star Wars. So I read a lot of Empire books, Empire Epic Collection. So I'll go through all of them here. So Volume 4 of the Empire Epic Collection had a couple of mini stories that I had. I wrote down a bunch of notes here on those. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. But yeah, Volume 4 had this storyline called Cry of Shadows. And basically it had the storyline with this clone that was abandoned during the Clone Wars that basically enlists in the Empire. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story. I think his name's called Hawk. I think that's his name. And then we get into some stuff with like Jabba, which I honestly felt pretty checked out with. The Jabba stories in this, I did not really like. Just did not really feel that invested into, honestly. And then we get this last story here called Boba Fett, Enemy of the Empire, where basically Vader enlists him to go get this like casket of this like alien precognitive head or something like that. And this is like kind of the first time we see like Vader and Boba Fett working together. And, you know, it's always interesting because at the end of this, like Boba tries to like double cross Vader and like they both kind of come to an agreement where like they don't want each other dead because they both kind of need each other, if that makes sense. So yeah, they really did a good job skating the line there because obviously there is some canon they have to be aware of here. Because obviously in episode 5, Vader uses Boba to find the Millennium Falcon. So like they got to preserve that relationship to a certain extent, I guess. So that was volume 4 of the Empire Epic Collection. Volume 5, I'll just summarize it right here. It was a bunch of like droid miniseries and stuff. This one I just felt very checked out from. It was just a lot of R2-D2 and C-3PO stuff, and honestly, I would make the argument that you could probably skip this whole volume and not really feel like you missed out on much. So yeah, I know that's very short, very critical, but this just felt like a lot of extra filler for me, like stuff that I didn't think I really needed to or wanted to read. So yeah. I unfortunately don't have volume 6, so maybe I'll find it at some point, but just for the sake of me trying to get through all my books, I just kept moving through what I had, which was volume 7. So this one I thought was actually probably the one that stood out the most to me from all these other ones I read. This one had a really good storyline called Blood Ties, which basically has basically explains like this other clone that broke away from the clone army, started a family, and then Jango Fett dies obviously, but Jango actually kills this clone, but the clone had a kid with another woman, so like this kid grows up to be around the same age as Boba, and like the two of them kind of team up to take down like an enemy or something. And then we also get some stuff with like Boba Fett is dead. So, we kind of, this is a follow-up to that Blood Ties storyline. And then we also get some stuff, you know, another storyline called Betrayal, where Boba Fett takes down some Imperial insurgents. So like, that's another common theme with these books, is like there's a lot of storylines where Imperial like officers try to take over and like defeat the like kill the Emperor and Darth Vader and basically take the Empire for themselves. It never works out for them. I know that's a shocker to say, but this one, Boba Fett actually works with Vader to take down these insurgents. So that was a really cool storyline. And then we wrap up this volume with like a whole storyline with Han and Lando and like all the other bounty hunters, where basically like the Hutts like work with all these other bounty hunters to basically like have them all fight against each other to get this artifact called the Yavin Yasalika, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a really hard word to say. That was kind of fun. I like the whole premise of like all of them kind of, we get like Dengar and IG-88, we get Bosk. So like all the regular bounty hunters we saw in episode 5 are in this storyline. So that was kind of cool. So that was volume 7. Volume 8, this was the one I just recently finished actually today at the time of this recording. And this one is like, I'm pretty sure this is the last Empire volume that came out, because this takes us right up to the actual events of New Hope. So this one had a lot of Rebel stuff in it, not a lot of Imperial stuff in here, but we get the origins of General Dodonna. So like he actually was promoted after a guy that helped recruit him, or that he, I guess, recruited, like died or something. So we get some background to there. I will say, I think the standouts to this are, in this volume, we get the backstory of what Biggs Darklighter was doing during the events of episode 4, which I thought was really cool. Like he actually goes to the academy, and then he comes back to Tatooine, where that's where he talks to Luke, and like this is all in like deleted scenes from New Hope, but he talks to Luke about how he's going to defect to the Rebel Alliance. So we actually see that whole thing take place, and we actually see him, like we actually see like what his perspective is of like stuff that happens during the events of New Hope, which I think is good, because like that was always something that bothered me in New Hope, was that like we just get this guy named Biggs shows up at the very end. We never know who he is, and then he just dies in the battle. So like, if there's one thing I wish they would have done, is I wish they would have added in those scenes with Biggs at the beginning when Luke and him are on Tatooine, because that definitely helps us as the audience like feel emotional about him dying at the end of episode 4. So but yeah, nonetheless, got to see it in this, which I thought was really good. And then also this volume also had a special edition of like the New Hope retelling. I think that came out in like 1997, so it's not the original New Hope like six issue series that kicked off the original like Star Wars comics. This one's actually like a different like retelling of it, which it was all right. I mean, it was pretty much like just word for word the movie script, like just cut up into 4 issues. So nothing to really crazy to write home about for that. So yeah, that is what I've been reading 30 minutes later, as I usually always do. So yeah, we'll go ahead and cut it here, and then I will come back and do the haul for the PhillyCon. So stay tuned for that. All right, guys. So as I promised, I am back here for my haul for Comic-Con. So I will go through that here. Some things I did want to show, kind of related to it, kind of not, but I did want to show the pass that I got from this year's con. So this one was kind of cool, kind of like a little Jedi art there. I don't know exactly who that is, but yeah, it was cool. And I do also want to show, I did get this this band. So funny story here. My wife and I came into the con, and like we were like kind of in a rush to get up there, but also like there was a massive crowds of people walking around, so like we didn't get a chance to get our free lanyards. So my wife actually went over and bought 2. didn't really look at exactly what was on them, but she actually got like this really sick like comic Doctor Doom badge, which is so cool. It has Philadelphia Fan Expo on there. Um, I don't know what it is. Like this is honestly probably one of my favorite things from the con. I know I told my wife this, she laughed, but it's just so cool. Like it has like the classic like Doom face on there. So just a really cool thing. I definitely plan to bring this with me to future cons to wear. I think this is like honestly my definitive lanyard to wear now to cons. So yeah, just a really cool little memento to keep from this trip. I thought it was really fun to have that. Something else too, comic related, wanted to show here because it's not really a comic, but my wife and I, we were shopping around. So like, you know, when I go to cons, obviously I look for comics and like action figures and things like that. But my wife likes to shop at like rings, like for rings, like crochet stuff, like, you know, different jewelry maybe. So this one place had like a bunch of like rings. They were doing like a sale, like 3 rings for $45, which is like $15 a ring. They were like stainless steel rings, which was cool. They had some really cool ones. There was a Darth Vader one that I was thinking about getting, but I ended up getting this Iron Man one. So it's actually really cool. It actually fits my finger like fairly well, I would say. So there it is on the finger, but yeah, I don't intend to wear this around the house or out anywhere. I didn't actually verify if this was my ring size. So this is just gonna be a memento thing that I'm probably gonna put with the rest of my Iron Man stuff in my collection, but really cool. I mean, it's a really nice ring. I love that like the sides of it even has like the ear slots. So yeah, really cool. I mean, for $15, I think this was a nice little cool memento to have. So there's that. All right, so before I get into all my comics, I do also want to show some books I got. So huge shout out to my friend Nelson. He knew that I was collecting the Dune books, and he is looking to, I think he's eventually upgrading to hardcovers. So he was actually nice enough to just give me his books for free. I tried to offer him multiple things in return. He would not let me give anything to him. So I just want to give him a huge shout out. I think him and his wife watch these videos, so just wanted to thank him personally for giving me these books. I will keep them in very good condition and take really good care of them. So you can see here, these are the 4 Dune books that he gave me. So I do own the first Dune book. I picked that up like end of last year. And these ones are all in the same like spine design style as that one. So these will look amazing on the shelf. I'm really excited to get into these. You know, like I said, you know, I've heard a lot of good things about Dune. Obviously, they're making movies of them. You know, I do want to like once I'm kind of through like the books that I've bought for Star Wars, I definitely want to get into this and read these. So really excited. These are books 2 through 5. So I think there's 1 book left. I don't really remember what that book is called, but yeah. So you got Messiah, which is the 2nd book. You got Children of Dune, which is the 3rd book. God, Emperor of Dune, which is book 4, and then Heretics of Dune. So again, really want to thank my friend Nelson for giving me these, and can't wait to read them along with some other recs that they gave me before with like Dungeon Crawler Carl and things like that. So really hyped to get into those series at some point. All right, so comics. Ended up getting 2 single issues of stuff. So the first one here shouldn't be a surprise. This is the thumbnail for this video, and that is Iron Man number 46. So this was one that I just did not have in my collection. Features the Guardsman up against Iron Man. So I do remember reading this storyline when it came, or not when it came out, because I wasn't around when it came out. I remember reading this probably about a decade ago at this point in Essentials, and I was just loving this whole storyline with the Guardsman. It was such a great run. I know a lot of people haven't read this probably, but I think this is probably one of the higher points of the early Iron Man series. But yeah, this was an issue I didn't have yet in my collection, so I picked it up, and I now have it. I will say there was another vendor that had a lot of other issues of Iron Man that I needed, like earlier issues. I was gonna pull the trigger on them, but it was like I actually found so many that I like just could not justify the cost, and like also like the service was causing issues with some of the vendors, so they were not accepting credit cards. They were only accepting like Venmo, and I just did not feel comfortable like taking all that money directly out of my account. You know, a credit card's a little bit different, right? You have more time to pay it back and budget for everything, right? But yeah, I didn't feel like pulling all that money out just for some issues that are going to go into a box. So I'll still find it. I have almost like about over 90% of Volume 1 collected, so I don't have many left. So it's not a crazy priority thing right now. This book I kind of splurged on. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of just wanted to get a slab because like I didn't really get too much at this con, but I do like to look at like the slabs, and if I can find something that's a decent price for a slab, I will take it. Because you know it kind of takes away like all of the like work of having to send it to CGC to get graded and slab and pay for all that. So it's just the novelty of it that I really like too. So I actually found this one. I thought this was a decent deal. This is Captain America 275. So like semi-anniversary issue, if you will. I mean, it's not 300 obviously, but it's 275, which is a nice like number to reference, I guess. This actually has the first appearance of Baron Zemo II. So if he ever shows up in a movie, I'm going to be a rich person. But I highly doubt it. I don't think they're ever going to introduce that character in a movie. But if they do, then I have the first appearance of him. But yeah, so really cool. This is a Mike Zeck cover. A J.M. DeMatteis story, which I think is actually kind of funny because, you know, I'm pretty sure throughout this whole run, like Mark Grunwald was writing a lot of these issues. So it's really interesting that I ended up picking up a J.M. DeMatteis issue. So yeah, I will actually, now that I have it here, I will take it. Probably should have done this. Take it out of the slab so you can see that looks like. And you know what's really funny is as I was looking at this and when I was showing it to my wife, I actually turned it around and saw that there is a Lego ad on the back. So there you go. I guess this was destiny. Just goes to show you how different Lego ads look like today compared to back in 1982. So, cool. This is my first Captain America slab, so I'm really excited to have this. And yeah, I'm hoping that because I'm thinning out my collection of actual like collected editions of stuff as I read them, I'm hoping that I can eventually like display some of these like throughout my collection here. Like I would really like to put this with like my Cap collection maybe. It's just a matter of the space and how I want to display it. But nonetheless, really cool to get another slab here. And 7.5 for 35 bucks I don't think is too bad of a price, to be honest. So there's that. Okay. Next bundle of books here, I guess I'll just show all at once, is this wasn't on my radar to get, but I saw it and I'm like, oh, that looks like Kirby. And it turns out that this is like all basically like kind of playing off of like Kirby's Fourth World stuff. And that series is called Godland. So this is by Joe Casey and Tom Scioli, I think. Which Tom Scioli, I think he did I want to say he did the like X-Men Treasury Edition books. I think he's the one who did the art on those. But this stuff looks really cool. Obviously, this is very much inspired off of Kirby. You know, you have Kirby Crackle everywhere. The faces, I mean, the faces look almost exactly like Kirby. So, you know, if you're a Jack Kirby fan, this is definitely worth picking up. So here's volume 1. Volume 2. So just really love the way it looks. Looks really cool. Volume 3. And this is the entire series, so it's collected in 6 volumes. So like I found this at a vendor, and I just picked the whole pile up, and it was like $5 I think for each of these. So you can't really beat that, to be honest. So there's volume 4. Volume 5, yeah, that just screams Kirby there for you. And then volume 6, which is the thickest one, and this has the finale issue too. So yeah, this is just going to be a treat. I'm just reading this, or just looking at this. I'm pretty excited. I think this will be a really fun book to read. So obviously the aesthetic is there, but I think the storyline will probably be pretty cool too. So so yeah, that's what all those spines look like lined up. So yeah, we'll give that a read at some point. Don't know when, but got it for the collection. This next book I got kind of on a whim. I bought this for my wife because you know, obviously she bought the lanyard for me, so I wanted to get her a little something in return just to thank her for getting that for me. And I bought her the Marvelous Land of Oz trade paperback. So looked this up online. Turns out these like trades are like out of print now, I guess, or maybe it's just what's on Amazon. I don't know. Might not be a good indicator. But this is from what I saw, this is like the second book of the series of like Marvel Oz books that they came out with. So this art's by Scotty Young, writings by Eric Shanower. But I think it's weird how they just put like L. Frank Baum like in the front there. Like I'm like, he definitely didn't write this, but like I guess there's probably something legally they have to do to like, they have to put his name on it because it's Oz material, right? But yeah, this is really cool. Like the art, it's very much Scotty Young at his best, or at one of his best, I guess. So yeah, this will be a treat to read. Maybe I'll give this to her to keep in her room. I don't know if she wants it or not, but I guess we'll see. All right, these next two found for half off here. So got this one for $7, and that is Batman Arkham Asylum by Grant Morrison. So to many of my friends' surprise, I do not own this. Well, now I do, but I didn't own this before I found it. So really cool to get this. This is an older trade, so I was able to get half off of this. So $7 for this, I think, is a really good deal. And you know, it's Grant Morrison, so it's some pretty interesting stuff going on there. Dave McKean is the artist. So yeah, we'll see what this is about. Excited to read that. And then this one here is Carl Kessel's series, Batman and Superman World's Finest. So I do have another World's Finest. I think that one's actually called Superman and Batman World's Finest, while this one is Batman and Superman World's Finest. So they're both kind of the series I already read is in this with the Superman books, and then this one's going to go with the Batman books, or I don't know. But anyways, this is written by Carl Kessel. This book was $20, so I got it for 10. So I think that was a pretty good deal for this. You can see here kind of what that looks like on the inside. So yeah, give this a read at some point. I think maybe the next major series that I'll be reading at some point, or the next readathon that I'll probably be doing at some point is Batman, because I think the next Batman movie is coming out in 2027. So I think once I either finish Star Wars or Avengers, whichever one I finish first, I'll probably start going through my Batman stuff and reading whatever I haven't read already. So I think that's probably going to start with Grant Morrison stuff. I think that's who I need to read first. I can't remember. I think that's what it is. But anyways, so yep, got that coming down the pipe here. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that is my comic haul for the Philly Comic Con 2026 haul. So I do have 2 Lego sets to show, so those will be very quick, and we'll finish up this video. So let's go into the Lego section. All right, guys, thanks for tuning back into the Lego section. So as I mentioned, I'll keep this one short, but yeah, eventually I got these 2 sets from Walmart. This was a couple weeks ago. I was having a pretty rough week at work, so I just decided to give myself a little treat of buying some discounted Lego sets. I think total of these 2 sets cost me like 35 bucks. So just meet the shipping threshold, so that way they could be shipped from my local Walmart to my house without me having to get in my car and go get them. So the first one here I got was the Miles Morales Mech versus Spider-Man 2099. So I believe I do own both of these minifigures. I don't think this... I definitely think this Spider-Man 2099 figure is like a downgrade from the CMF series for Spider-Verse that we got. But nonetheless, I do like that the mechs actually have 2 minifigures now. So I think that's really cool inclusion that they have. And this one was on sale. This was like close to 10 bucks. So I thought it was a pretty good deal to get 2 minifigs and a mech for 10 bucks. So picked this one up for that good price there. I think eventually I'm just going to end up like scrapping like all the mech like parts at some point, because I don't intend on keeping those in my collection. I obviously don't display them. That would be a little silly to display those. But anyways, the second set I bought here was one that I wanted to get because I think it might be retiring soon. I don't remember. But like I said at nauseum on this channel, don't sleep on the 3-in-1 sets that Lego makes. They're honestly killing it recently with a lot of them. And this one I think is just a cool one just to have like as an aesthetic. I plan to probably put this on like my office desk, because I think this is like a perfect like office accessory to put. And that is the retro telephone. So a lot of kids that are probably watching this video, or maybe not, or kids from before my generation probably don't even know what this is. But yeah, this is really cool. I love the little notepad and pencil. I think that's a really cool inclusion. And yeah, I actually might even just build this tonight. I think this is like a really nice little like Friday night build. Sit down and build a retro telephone. You can also get like the other retro phones, pagers, stuff like that. So that's kind of cool too. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna build this one. This is the primary build, and this just looks really cool, really iconic. At some point, I do want to get the typewriter. I think that'd be cool to have too. It's actually the same price as this, so I think I'll eventually get that at some point too, because I think that is older than this set. I think this came out in what year did this come out? This came out in 25. I think the typewriter came out in 24, but I could be wrong. So those are my Lego sets. That's all I have for this week. So let's go ahead and get into the outro for this video. All right, guys, so thank you so much for watching. As I mentioned, had a lot of fun at the Philly Con. Just want to thank my friends again for a really fun day. Yeah, hope you guys liked this video. Please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I have a whole playlist of these videos on my channel if you want to go all the way back to 2017 when I first started these hauls, or I guess 2018. Go back and check them out. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys on the flip side. Peace.